It starts with a case so disturbing, so psychologically twisted, that even the detectives who worked on it struggled to speak about it afterward. A case that didn't just involve violence. It involved manipulation, obsession, and a kind of darkness that slowly grew unnoticed, right in front of everyone's eyes. This is not the kind of story that relies on jump scares or dramatic headlines. This is the kind of story that chills you because it feels real, too real, and because the warning signs were there long before anyone noticed. Our story centers around 29-year-old Hannah Cooper, a soft-spoken bookshop employee who lived a quiet life in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. She wasn't famous, she didn't have enemies, and she didn't live an exciting or dangerous life. She woke up early, worked long hours, read mystery novels, and spent weekends visiting her sister. She was ordinary in every way, calm, gentle, predictable, and that's exactly what made her the perfect target. For months, Hannah had felt something was off. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could file a police report over. She would come home and find her kitchen window slightly open when she was sure she had closed it. A light left on. She didn't remember turning on, her keys misplaced, only to appear exactly where she swore she checked earlier. These weren't crimes on their own, just unsettling details she brushed off as forgetfulness or stress. But someone else knew the truth. Someone had been studying her. Someone had been inside her home. Someone had been waiting. That person was a man named Aaron Miles, a 34-year-old with a clean record, polite manners, and the kind of forgettable face you wouldn't notice in a crowd. He wasn't a close friend. He wasn't a coworker. He wasn't even someone Hannah ever truly noticed. He was just a customer, one who visited the bookshop a few times a week, always lingering near the counter, always asking Hannah small, unnecessary questions, always smiling a little too long. He blended in so well that no one ever suspected he was hiding something sinister beneath that polite exterior. But what no one knew was that Aaron had developed an unhealthy obsession with Hannah, an obsession that grew stronger every time he saw her. It wasn't love, not affection, it was fixation, control, a desire to possess her life in a way she would never consent to. At first he followed her quietly. He learned her schedule when she left home, when she returned, when she showered, when she slept. Then gradually he escalated. He copied her keys, broke into her home, and moved small objects, just to feel her confusion. He watched her from the shadows of her own living room, and she never knew he was there. He kept a journal documenting everything, her mood, her clothing, what she ate, which pages of her book she dog-eared, how long she spent brushing her hair, page after page of disturbing obsessive detail. And then came the night everything changed. On a cold evening in November, the bookstore closed early. Due to a storm, Hannah walked home through the rain, unaware that Aaron had watched her from across the street, following her at a distance that felt almost natural. She entered her apartment, locked the door, and sighed in relief, happy to be safe and warm inside. But what she didn't know was that Aaron had entered hours earlier, that he was already inside, hidden in the darkest corner of her bedroom. When she finally went to sleep, the storm thundered outside, loud enough to muffle the sound of someone stepping closer and closer and closer. Police would later determine that what happened next was not sudden or impulsive. It was planned, meticulous. Aaron had written about this night for weeks, imagining it, preparing for it. And the chilling part, he believed what he was doing wasn't a crime. He believed it was destiny. He believed Hannah was meant to belong to him. Neighbors reported hearing something in the night, a loud bang, a scream that was quickly muffled, but the storm drowned everything else. Nobody reacted. Nobody realized that Hannah was fighting for her life just a few feet away from their own warm beds. By morning, her apartment was silent. Hannah didn't show up for work. Her boss called her phone, no answer. Her sister tried to reach her, no reply. Concern grew quickly because Hannah was reliable, responsible, never late. By evening, her sister drove to her apartment. She knocked, no response. She tried calling out her name, silence. But she noticed something chilling. The door wasn't fully closed. Inside, the apartment looked strangely clean. Too clean, almost staged. But the most horrifying part was Hannah's bedroom. Furniture slightly moved, a lamp knocked over, and on the floor, something dark. Her sister called the police, shaking, terrified. When investigators arrived, the scene instantly set off alarms. There was no forced entry, no signs of robbery, no valuables missing. This wasn't a break-in. This was personal. And worse, Hannah herself was nowhere to be found. Detectives searched every corner, every closet, every inch of the apartment. Then they found something under her bed. A small notebook. Not Hannah's. Aaron. Inside were page after page of disturbing notes about her life. Sketches of her sleeping, lists of her daily habits. And on the last page, one sentence written violently, nearly carved into the paper. "Tonight she becomes mine." That notebook changed the entire direction of the investigation. Detectives recognized Aaron's name from transactions at the bookstore. They pulled security footage. They watched him follow her. They traced his steps. And then they discovered something even more disturbing. He had been fired from his previous job because of inappropriate behavior toward a female co-worker. No charges filed, no follow-up, just warnings that no one took seriously. But now, things were different. A warrant was issued, and police swarmed Aaron's apartment. What they found inside shook even the most seasoned investigators. A wall covered in photographs of Hannah, her belongings stolen months earlier, clothing he had taken, and videos of her walking home recorded from different angles. But Aaron was gone. He had vanished without a trace. Helicopters, drones, search dogs. Everyone was mobilized. And deep in the woods, miles from town, officers found a disturbing clue. Hannah's necklace lying in the dirt, half buried as if it had been dropped during a struggle. And just a few feet away, footprints. 2 sets, one dragging. The hunt was on. The footprints led investigators deeper into the woods, following a narrow path that twisted between trees as if someone had dragged a heavy weight through the mud. Every officer on the scene felt the same tension, the quiet dread that they were too late, that whatever they might find ahead would confirm their worst fears. But they pressed forward, guided by the hope that Hannah might still be alive. About half a mile in, search dogs alerted near a cluster of dense bushes. Officers spread out, scanning the ground with flashlights, their beams slicing through the darkness. Then one officer shouted for backup. There, hidden beneath branches and leaves, was a small makeshift campsite. Nothing more than a tarp, pile of clothes, and scattered food wrappers. But the most disturbing item was a length of rope tied around a tree trunk, worn and frayed from struggle. And at the base of the tree, half buried in the soil, they found Hannah's bracelet. She had been there, not long ago. The urgency intensified. Officers fanned out, expanding the search radius, calling her name, looking for any sign, broken branches, fresh footprints, discarded items. And then, just as daylight began to break, a deputy spotted movement far ahead near an old abandoned cabin. A figure, thin, disheveled, walking slowly. At first, the deputy thought it might be Hannah, but as he got closer, he realized the posture was wrong. Too steady, too controlled. It was Aaron. He was carrying something in his hands, something wrapped in a blanket. The deputy raised his weapon and ordered him to stop, but Aaron didn't flinch. He turned his head slightly, offering a cold, almost peaceful smile. Then he placed the bundle gently on the ground and raised both hands. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He simply said, "She's safe now. I freed her." Those words froze the blood of every officer within earshot. As Aaron was taken into custody, officers rushed to the blanket. With trembling hands, they unwrapped it, only to find nothing but clothes, items from Hannah's apartment, things Aaron had stolen months earlier. It was a twisted trophy bundle, something he had carried like a prize. But Hannah herself was nowhere to be found. Back at the station, detectives sat across from Aaron in a dim interrogation room. He looked calm, almost relieved. His hands rested neatly on the table, his voice quiet and steady as he answered every question. But his answers made no sense. He spoke as if he and Hannah had a connection, as if she had agreed to leave society with him. He said he rescued her from her lonely life, that she belonged in a place where time didn't matter. Every sentence was coated in delusion. Every word was detached from reality. But when detectives pushed harder, demanding to know where she was, Aaron's expression changed. His eyes darkened, his jaw tightened, and he whispered, "You'll see soon. She's waiting." Investigators needed answers fast. They obtained a warrant to search the abandoned cabin near where Aaron was arrested. The cabin was rotten, dust-filled, with broken windows and a collapsed roof. But inside they found evidence that confirmed their worst fears: blankets, rope, a water jug, and scratched into the wooden floor, a single word: Hannah. Next to it, a long fingernail mark where she had desperately tried to claw her way free. The horror of what she endured inside that cabin was still unknown. But one thing was clear: she had been alive there, terrified, alone, and fighting. The search team pushed beyond the cabin, stretching into deeper parts of the forest, using drones, heat sensors, and K9 units. Hours passed. The sun began to set again. The air grew cold, heavy with dread. Officers started to worry that time was slipping away. Then, just when hope began to fade, one of the dogs alerted near a rocky hillside, a small cave entrance barely visible behind thick brush. Officers shouted Hannah's name, hoping for any response, any sound. But there was nothing, only silence. They entered the cave carefully, flashlights trembling in their hands. Inside, the air was damp, suffocating, and at the back of the cave, curled against the rough stone wall, they found her. Hannah, weak, freezing, but alive. Her hands trembled when she lifted her head. Her voice was barely audible, but the moment she saw the flashlights, the officers, the rescue team, she started sobbing, relief flooding over her shaking body. She had survived. Barely. She had escaped the cabin when Aaron stepped out to gather food. She had run blindly through the woods until she found the cave. Terrified that he would return, she had stayed silent, too afraid to call for help. The officers wrapped her in blankets, carried her out gently, and rushed her to the nearest hospital. The news spread quickly after days of terror. Hannah Cooper had been found alive. But survival was only the beginning. While Hannah recovered physically, the psychological trauma was severe. She told investigators that Aaron had been visiting her apartment for months, whispering things in the dark when she pretended to sleep, rearranging objects, just to watch her confusion build. He believed that if he slowly isolated her from reality, she would eventually accept him. His plan wasn't just physical kidnapping, it was mental possession. He wanted to break her mind. He wanted to erase her life. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. Photos, videos, journals, stolen items, the cabin, the campsite, the cave. Aaron didn't deny any of it. He didn't plead insanity. He simply said, "I did what I had to do." The judge described the case as one of the most disturbing acts of obsession he had ever seen. Aaron Miles was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole. The trial ended. But for Hannah, it didn't feel like closure. Even after recovery, she struggled with the smallest things: locking doors, walking home alone, turning off lights. Every sound felt like footsteps. Every shadow felt like someone watching. She moved homes, changed jobs, cut ties with the town she once loved. But she survived something most people could never imagine. And that's what makes this case so profoundly disturbing, not just the crime itself, but the quiet way it began. A smile from a stranger, a customer who lingered, a small shift in routine, a door left slightly open. It wasn't dramatic at first. It was subtle, slow, invisible. The kind of danger that hides in plain sight until the moment it strikes. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It wasn't just obsession. It was a calculated attempt to take over someone's life, to rewrite their existence, to erase their identity piece by piece. And even now, investigators say Hannah is one of the luckiest victims they've ever encountered. Not because of what happened to her, but because she lived to tell the story. This was, and still remains, the most disturbing case you'll ever hear.